Do you have an interest to give the court and jury in the trial of this issue should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Step this way, ma'am. Have a seat, watch still.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Mr. Dean.
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, I'm Kimberly Johnson. I work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation as a forensic accountant.
Is that different from a special agent?
Yes, no gun, no badge.
What does a forensic accountant do? What do you do day to day?
I'm tasked with using financial information as it relates to criminal investigation.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Mostly bank records, titles, tax records, whatever may come in, invoices from a company, just trying to put the picture together from the money side of an investigation.
So is it fair to say that day to day you're in an office analyzing like Excel spreadsheets and things like this?
Yes, in an office behind a computer.
How long have you been doing that for the FBI?
Just short of 27 years.
Do you have any collateral duties or I guess like side responsibilities at the FBI?
I do. I'm collateral duty as a member of the evidence response team.
And what is the evidence response team?
We are a team that goes out for searches and crime scenes, and we're responsible for collecting and packaging evidence that's discovered.
How did you as a forensic accountant become a member of the evidence response team?
It was voluntary, and like I said, it's collateral to my regular job. And me personally, I was motivated after 9/11.
Is it a volunteer duty or service on the ERT?
Yes, it's absolutely voluntary.
In your capacity as a member of the evidence response team, were you involved in the landfill search looking for Quentin Simon?
I was.
Can you tell us how you were involved initially?
Yes, initially I was just a searcher called up to help work the lines. Later in the search, I had a few days where I acted as team leader.
And what does the team leader do out there?
Basically responsible for managing the search and the personnel on that day.
And were you the team leader on duty at the Waste Management Superior Landfill on the day that the search team out there found Quentin?
I was.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about the layout of the landfill search. What was the search area? Can you describe that?
It was basically the area that was identified in the landfill where they were digging the trash out for us to search.
Like sort of a hillside
Yeah.
of garbage?
Yes.
And what was the search deck?
The deck was where they actually spread the garbage that they'd taken out of the search area. They spread it along the deck so we could go through and manually search through it for what we were looking for.
So aside from the search area, kind of up on the hill and the search deck where everything was being laid out to be searched, what else was out there? What was the rest of the setup like?
So kind of looking at it from the perspective of walking to the deck, there was a road that we would enter in from, and
Now,
then
before you go into
sorry.
is that the perimeter road that kind of goes around the landfill?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was kind of a driveway, is how I would describe it, that we would, after we got our PPE on and such, we would walk up onto the deck. So from the perspective of walking towards the deck, on the right side, they had tents and chairs set up for us to be able to take breaks without actually leaving the search deck and having to take all of our equipment off. To the left, there was an area where the deck boss and the logistics people and the safety officers kind of observed us as we were searching. So that's how it's split.
What about the forensic anthropologist? Was there a forensic anthropologist out there?
There was, and she was, so turning around and walking towards the road, She was kind of, as you exited the driveway, she was on the other side of the road set up in a tent. Then to the right of her, there was a tent with all of the protective equipment. That's where we would grab our stuff. To the right of that, there was a tent where we could sit and put our suits on and everything. There was drinks in there. That's where they would set out the lunches for us to grab. And then to the left of the tent, there was another supply trailer. So that was like extra supplies. So the logistics guys would bring them from there to the tent if we were running low on gloves or whatever.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about the different personnel that was or were out there, in their different roles. You've talked about the team leader role a little bit. As a team leader, what sort of gear did you have on a day-to-day basis?
Pretty much the same as searchers. We were dressed out in regular PPE. In addition, we had buckets or those silver like catering trays that we would collect items that people found while they were searching that would then go to the forensic anthropologist to scan through.
So you had a bucket or a tray?
Yeah, like the Home Depot, like the 5-gallon bucket, or like I said, those silver catering trays.
And what would you do with the bucket or tray? Just kind of walk me through how that would work.
Okay. We didn't want to leave the deck because we were suited up. So there'd be a runner that would come up and meet us kind of at that driveway area and take whatever we had collected from the line and then take it across the road to the tent where the forensic anthropologist was so she could do her screening.
What was the process of collecting material from the line? Just what did that look like? You have this bucket in your hand. What happens?
Yeah, so everybody did it a little bit different, each individual. Most people, when they got dressed, we called it a bone bag on there. They taped it to their suit and used tongs to pull out things that they thought were of interest, and it would go to the bone bag. It saved you from having to call somebody over every time you found something. So at the end of the line, when we were done, it was considered complete. Then we'd go along that line and basically dump everything into the buckets out of the trays and then send them across the road.
All right, so it's the individual searchers that have the bone bag, and then at the end of that line, all that gets dumped in the bucket and run to the anthropologist across the road, if I understand you correctly?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about the searchers. Who were these people, and what were they wearing and using in terms of equipment?
Okay. We had representatives from federal, state, and local departments. I think over the 5-week span, there was over 75 different people that came out to help us search. The PPE, it started with a pair of steel-toe boots. They were required, and then a white Tyvek suit, which is the white suits that look like paper. They're not paper. They're more like a nylon plastic, not very breathable, so pretty hot. And then we had booties over that we were duct taped around our ankles. And then a yellow, like plastic bootie over that, like a taller boot on top of that. Then we had safety vest on. We were gloved up. Most people put cotton gloves on, and then what we call a nitrile glove, which is like a surgical glove. And then that was duct taped to the Tyvek suit. And then we put work gloves on top of that. And then we had boonie caps. Most people, because it has a wide brim to kind of keep the sun off of us. We were required to wear safety goggles and what we call a half face respirator. So if you can imagine, like an oxygen mask is how it fits over your mouth and nose. And then it has like detachable, not reusable, throwaway filters on them. They also were hot, but it helped us keep the smell down. So we didn't like wearing them, but it was helpful. Like I said, bone bags taped on our hips.
I think you mentioned tongs earlier. Was there any other sort of implement that y'all would use for the actual searching the lines themselves?
Yes, we used, I think they call them fireman's rakes, but they're big 6-foot-ish long, heavy kind of rakes. And they've got 3 or 4 prongs, like wide prongs on the end, to kind of rake through the trash and pick out stuff as you're going through it. So
Now, we're going to see some pictures, but I just want to ask you, what does trash look like as you're going through it on the search deck? We all throw away bags of trash and they get carried away from our house and then they're gone. But what does it look like by the time that you're out there on the search deck going through it?
it doesn't look like a pile of bags. By the time it got to the point where we saw it, it had been shredded and mashed and mixed with dirt. So it's kind of just a gray, muddy looking field. You do occasionally find an intact bag or an intact piece of furniture or a roll of carpet, but most of the things that we found were broken in pieces. And if we would find like an intact bag, you'd get together with, another person or 2 other people to kind of rip those bags open to make sure that there wasn't anything that was of interest in there, or unroll the carpet rolls or.
Now, were there heavy equipment operators out there helping you all conduct the search?
There were.
Can you tell me what kind of gear they were using and what they were doing with it?
So there was an excavator on the hill at the search area that would scoop the trash out and put it in a dump truck. And then once the dump truck was full, they would drive it down to the deck and then kind of bounce along and kind of dump the trash out in kind of a line. And then there was a smaller excavator that came along and kind of spread it so it wasn't quite so deep, spread it thin, so it was a little bit easier to get through because it's pretty heavy.
And once the excavator had come and sort of spread it out on the deck, what do you call that?
I called it a line. I don't know if people may have called it different things, but I just referred to it as a line.
Okay. Other personnel, you mentioned the forensic anthropologist at this point. I think this person has come up. Who was this person? Not necessarily the name, but where they came from and how they got there.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not good with names. She was, my understanding, contracted from Georgia Southern University, and she would come out to provide that expertise, and she would normally bring 1 or 2 of her students with her to help her with the task.
And what was the purpose she was serving out there? What was her function?
She was the subject matter expert on the bones and things that we may find. In our roles, I'm no expert at the difference between what this bone looks like and what this bone looks like. So we picked up the bones and then she let us know, if they were of any importance or not. So.
Okay. So it's like a screening role?
A screening role, for sure.
Might be of human origin, this definitely isn't, that kind of thing?
Correct.
Now, just to be clear, this is a different person in a different role from the forensic anthropologist at the lab at Quantico.
Oh,
that
yes.
referred from in this trial.
Yes.
Okay. Why do you need this forensic anthropologist out there conducting this screening role? Do you find a lot of bones in the landfill?
You do.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we probably, to say hundreds of bones a day would probably not be exaggerating. If you can imagine every chicken wing place, barbecue restaurant, animals that were disposed of, there's a lot of bones.
And can you describe kind of how the screening process would work from emptying the contents of the bone bags into the bucket onward?
Yeah, like I said, the runner would come and get them off the deck from us, take them to the forensic anthropologist. I wasn't really involved in her actual process, but she would go through everything that we had picked up and determine if there was anything of a human nature, and if not, then it's my understanding that they were then thrown away.
Now, I'd like to ask you just about kind of the workflow of the day, starting with everybody getting together to go to the landfill on a given morning.
Okay.
Can you tell us about that? What did a day look like?
Sure. We usually started the day pretty early. Like I said, when we first got started, it was pretty hot during the day, so the earlier we could get started, the better. We would rally at Scottsdale Park, and that was where the command post was set up, and there was a building where we could sit around and get ready for the day. About 7:30, we'd try to start a briefing. Usually it started with the search team leader that would just brief up from anything that had occurred the day before. If we had anybody there that was new, kind of explain what we were there for, what we were looking for. After that, usually a member of the case investigative team would brief us up on any investigative updates. And then we would hear from the logistics guys and anything we needed to know about the deck, the heavy equipment operators, anything that was going on with the search area or deck. And then the safety officers would just again remind us to keep our safety glasses on. Those were really hot, so a lot of times you just want to tip them up a little bit to breathe. And then to make sure everybody's staying hydrated, not falling out on the line or anything. After the brief was done, we'd load up in a couple of transport vehicles that would take us to the actual up the road and to the search area where we would dress out. We would get all our PPE on and usually try to be like on the line between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning. We would search lines until about lunchtime and then take our lunch break. At the point we took our lunch break, like I said, there was that area where we could like grab something to drink without getting out of our PPE. But for lunch break, we had to be cut out. So you can imagine somebody with a razor cutter coming down your back, kind of cutting you out of these things so you can throw it away. Do the lunch and then repeat after lunch, putting all the PPE back on, headed back to the line until we quit for the day. Sometime between 4 and 5 usually is what we aimed for. It all depended on where we were in amount of lines, what the daylight was doing, that sort of thing. If there was anything special happening, we would again get cut out. We'd have a brief if there was anything that we needed to relay for that from the day at that point, and transport back to the park, and everybody would break for the day.
How many days a week was the landfill search conducted?
The first week, it was only 4 days because they didn't start till Tuesday. The next 2 weeks, I think, was 5. The week after that was only 3 because there was a tropical storm coming in, so I shut it down, I think, Wednesday of that week. And then the final 2 weeks, I think, are, if I'm getting my dates messed up, but the rest of them were 5-day weeks. So it was a 5-day week except for the beginning and the tropical storm week.
Now, in terms of the searchers out on the deck, walking the lines, was that an all-volunteer duty?
Absolutely.
How long did it take to get into this PPE in the morning, initially, and then after lunch?
It probably 30 minutes by the time you're taped up and you help tape your buddies up. And so it is probably a 30-minute process.
At some point, did a photographer with the FBI come out there and take a series of photographs to kind of memorialize the search and what it looked like?
Yes.
Do you see in front of you an exhibit marked as State's Exhibit 76?
I do.
Can you flip through this and let me know when you're ready to talk about it?
Okay.
Are these Is this a selection of photographs of the landfill search operation?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately depict the operation as it appeared to you?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move these in as State's Exhibit 76.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, who did it without objection?
All right, this first photo here, can you describe where the photographer is standing as this picture is taken?
Yeah, kind of at the base, I talked about the driveway that we walked up to get to the deck. So she's like kind of to the right of that driveway. So the deck would be the upper left. The search area would be, I'm sorry, upper right. The search area is on the left there with that excavator. And then the road, these guys here are kind of standing on the inside of the road.
So this is like that perimeter road that runs along the outside of the landfill?
Yes.
Okay. This next photograph, you described earlier, there's an excavator up in the search area that would scoop out trash and load it into a dump truck to be taken down to the search deck. Is that what we're seeing here, this excavator and this dump truck?
Yes.
And this guy working this excavator and this other fellow standing out here, were they law enforcement or did they work for the landfill?
They were employees of the landfill. I believe one of the heavy equipment operators was from Chatham County Parks and Rec. And I think he just volunteered because he was knowledgeable in heavy equipment operations. So.
This next photograph, what are we looking at here?
Those are the boots. So you basically have the booties and the tie, that's the white Tyvek I was talking about, and then these yellow covers went over that, and that's what we were all duct taping with.
Okay, so you got
There would be
steel-toed boots under this this gray booty here.
Correct.
Over the gray booty, you get the yellow rubber or plastic.
Yes, and the bone bags we used, those were actually the bags that the booties came in. So we kind of multi-purpose that. So about the size of a loaf of bread, if you can imagine that size of bag. So.
The next photograph, is this on that perimeter road?
Yes,
And then we can see the search area on the far right there.
correct.
All right, and that, with that driveway thing
Probably
just off frame
To the right, yeah.
Okay. What is happening in this picture?
It looks like we're suiting up to go back in probably after lunch, given as bright as it is.
About how many searchers on any given day?
It varied a lot more in the beginning, like could be close to 40 in the beginning, and then, you know, as people had to split off and go do other things. Never less than 20 though, probably 20, 25, 30 on average.
The next picture, what are we seeing here? What's happening in this picture?
This is us coming onto the deck and just kind of getting perused by the safety officers to make sure that we had everything on that we were supposed to have.
The next picture?
Yeah, those are the fireman's rakes I was talking about. And they had a tarp that we could lay them on when we took breaks, and at lunch we could leave them on the deck without having to carry them out of the deck.
This next picture?
Yeah, that's the line, that's the process. It just lined up in a straight line, or tried to, and then everybody just kind of took their 2 or 3 foot section and just kind of worked their way to the other side of the line.
Now, zooming in on this, is this what we're looking at here, this garbage on the ground? Is this more or less representative of what this stuff looked like as y'all were going through it?
Yes,
What did it smell like out there?
it smelled bad. Like I said, the respirators help, but you'd go home and it would still be in your nose. Some people would put vapor rub underneath their nostrils to kind of help with it. So you cut yourself breathing out of your mouth as much as possible. So it's nasty.
What are we seeing in this picture here?
That's one of the buckets. Like I said, some people use the bone bags. Some people, we'd have buckets along the way that they could throw something into. And again, the process, it kind of varied by day. And like in this case, I don't know why, but we would start in a line and we would end up in a circle almost every single time. I'm not really sure how it happened, tried to stay in straight and always ended up in a circle, but I guess it worked, so.
This searcher right here, who appears to be, I don't know, tossing something into the bucket, perhaps. Do you recognize this person?
I'm just saying, but from the blonde ponytail, I would think it might be Officer Zerke, but I'm not sure since we all kind of look the same in our get-ups there, so.
Fair enough. Do you remember Officer Zerke being out there?
I do.
What do you remember about her involvement?
She had a knack for finding bones. She almost always had the fullest bone bag at the end of a line. She just had the eye to catch everything, I felt like. So she was really good at what she did, so.
What about her level of commitment to this operation?
Well, she was one of them that was there every day. So that says something. She was never sick or had to call off or anything.
Was that typical? I mean, were there people that were involved in this for a period of time and then, tapped out after some days and unvolunteered, I guess?
Yeah, and I don't know if it was so much unvolunteered, but this comes up in the middle of people's lives unexpectedly. So you might have a work commitment, you might have a personal commitment. But her and a few others from Chatham County PD were there every single day.
Now, this next photograph with this series of trays here, who are we looking at here?
Yeah, I believe that's the forensic anthropologist. Again, with the mask, it's kind of hard to tell, but and that's the catering tray I was talking about. So she would go through those. I separate things out, take a look, analyze it, screen it. That was what she was there for.
And just to be clear, this is not an image of Quentin's remains. This is just like
No,
a
that
given
looks
day.
like, just a I say regular, but just the results of a line search.
Okay. And she's about to go through those and
Looks like it, yes.
determine that none of them are Quentin.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you about November 18, 2022, the day that Quentin was found. You said earlier you were the team leader out there that day.
I was.
What do you remember about how that unfolded?
Started off like a regular search day. It was much cooler than it had been, which everybody it was a relief not to be so hot. It was also the last day we were going to search before shutting down for that Thanksgiving holiday. It had been determined that we weren't going to work that week. We were going to suspend the search until after Thanksgiving. So it was kind of the last day and then everybody was going to get a break.
And When did that day go from being the normal kind of tedious day like you'd been having to something different?
About midday, it was before lunch. Someone signaled from the line that if you found something that seemed unusual, you always kind of like raised your hand and gave a heads up. And this occurred that morning, late morning, indicated that they had found something that didn't look like everything else we've been seeing. It appeared to be a piece of a skull.
After that was found, what do you remember about how things played out next?
That was taken to the forensic anthropologist right away. We finished that line that we were working on, took everything that we had collected to the forensic anthropologist, cut out, and went ahead and went to lunch. And I don't remember if it was during lunch or right after we went back after lunch to start the next line. But the forensic anthropologist confirmed that she thought we did have human remains. So we continued the search of the line, and then at some point they determined that we needed to respread the line we did before lunch and search it again.
All told, how many different lines do you remember Quentin being found over?
I think just a couple, because we did, I want to say 2 after that we didn't find anything else in.
And is that how y'all decided kind of you were at a stopping point?
Yeah, I think it was that the forensic anthropologist, I think, determined that there was enough that had been collected to do, identification purposes. It was getting late. We were running out of daylight. So I think the people that decided those things decided that we were at a place where we could stop.
About how long do you remember it being from, the moment that very recognizable piece of skull is found to when y'all finished up and were done for that day?
It was late. It was getting dark because it was after the time change. I don't think we got back to the parking lot till after 5. I drove home in the dark, so we were out there quite a while because there was a lot of things to do on top of what we had found. We were breaking down for the week, closing things up and stuff. So
at some point during that sort of ongoing process of finding Quentin that day, did the case agents show up to take custody of Quentin and package his remains?
Yes, I think all of the investigative agents were there by mid-afternoon at the latest.
And was this your last day at the landfill, or did you have to come back at any point for anything
It
else?
was the last search day, as it turned out. We didn't know that at the time. The scene was not closed because we didn't know for sure what had been found. But after that was confirmed, preliminary confirmation that it was likely Quentin's remains, then we went back the Monday after Thanksgiving, which I think was the 28th of November, and we broke the scene down at that point.
One moment, please. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hilliard?
I don't have any questions for this witness, Judge.
All right, may she be excused?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.